My friends, this is a great time to become a channel member. Every week now I'm posting uncensored videos exclusively for my channel members, along with custom emojis and live streams for members at the Arch-Villain level where you get to talk to me directly. Please consider supporting this channel by clicking the link in the video description and joining us in our fight to save pop culture. And also, check out our Patreon and Subscribe-Star pages for exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, including Harvey Cthulhu's insane podcasts, photos of my vast toy collection, and members at the Legionnaire level receive a signed photo, membership card, and certificate signed by me. You'll find the Patreon link in the video description as well. Thanks for watching, my friends, and now on to the video. Greetings, my friends. I am Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, broadcasting from my hidden base at the center of the Earth, and I am here today to share my thoughts on the recent news regarding James Bond. While I was initially, like everyone else, filled with anger and disgust and even rage at the news, I paused a moment to grapple with those feelings, and now I have a fresh perspective, a sudden realization of just how badly Amazon has screwed itself, and by the end of this video, I hope to make you all feel better about what just happened. For those of you who aren't following the news closely these days, let's rip the Band-Aid off. James Bond fans were horrified yesterday afternoon to read the following headline on Deadline, quote, Amazon MGM Studios shelled out an extra $1 billion plus to take control of James Bond. What's next for the franchise? And here's the basics of the situation, quote, exclusive. It's taking around $1 billion to have 007 stewards Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson cede creative oversight of their family's storied James Bond franchise to Amazon MGM Studios, sources tell us. Amazon originally overpaid on its purchase of MGM in a deal orchestrated by then MGM board chair Kevin Ulrich. Though valued between $3.5 and $4 billion, the legendary motion picture studio was absorbed by the streamer for $8.5 billion, the hefty sum propped up by the potential access of the 007 franchise. However, Amazon couldn't freely develop Bond with Broccoli and Wilson in the mix. Hence, it took another $1 billion to ensure that they could fully steer and exploit the Ian Fleming IP, unquote.
Yes, fully steer and exploit. As in steer the franchise over a damned cliff and exploit it like a prostitute on the street. In other words, not content with losing tons of money and gaining tons of hatred for ruining Lord of the Rings, now Amazon has bought a license to kill James Bond. Oh, wonderful news, if you're a worthless piece of shit cultural vandal.
Yeah, it's a sign of the times we live in, O Skull of Calderon, that this kind of news is greeted with almost universal fear and loathing, because the conventional wisdom holds that they're going to turn James Bond into Jane Bond. They're going to turn him into a spy of color. They're going to have they, them fighting against white male villains who refuse to use pronouns correctly while dressed in drag. I understand Dylan Mulvaney is all set to play Bond. Lizzo will be the Bond girl, and they/them will drive the new Jaguar, all of which will leave audiences shaken, not stirred. Obviously, this is a joke, but the great fear is these details won't be far off base, that something very much like this will be forthcoming from the studio that drove Lord of the Rings straight into the ground with woke bullshit, canon destruction, mediocre effects, and some of the worst writing outside of Star Trek Discovery. Why did Barbara Broccoli give in to Amazon? Here's what the article says, quote, those close to Broccoli and Wilson's camp are gobsmacked that Broccoli caved to the streamer. She's a fighter, says one source, but she got tired of fighting. Another acknowledges it had to be an emotional decision for Broccoli. Also, with Wilson ready to retire, Broccoli wasn't going to go at it alone. Broccoli's ire surrounded Amazon's desire to expand the James Bond franchise into its own universe. Oh God, jeez. Akin to Marvel or Star Wars. Yeah, exactly. That sentence says a lot, doesn't it, gang? Broccoli and Wilson, children of legendary 007 producer Albert R. Broccoli, and always held the line on quality control when it came to The British Spy, keeping the series as a standalone big screen brand. With today's news, Amazon can now proceed in extending the life of Bond, unquote. Ha ha ha. Well, my friends, see, this is where Amazon got screwed. This is where Amazon didn't read the fine print. And this is why the joke is on them.
Well, I don't know about that, dude. Personally, I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, yeah, this is potentially catastrophic news for Bond fans. I mean, every time a modern media company gets a hold of a franchise, they sodomize the shit out of it. Look at Disney and Star Wars. Or worse, look at Lord of the Rings and Amazon. Nothing good has come out of that, dude. Just a bunch of cultural vandalism committed by incompetent propagandistic hacks in purple hair. On the other hand, they killed off James Bond in the last Broccoli movie, No Time to Die, so who gives a shit? How much worse can it get than that last piece of garbage movie where they killed James Bond?
You make an excellent point, Harvey Cthulhu. Indeed, that is the crux of the matter, the central point that brought me peace in this situation. Personally, I was infuriated by their idiotic decision to kill James Bond in the last movie. And I'm tired of fans making excuses, saying, well, but Daniel Craig was retiring, so it was just the end of Craig's James Bond. Folks, James Bond is not the Doctor. There are no new Bonds that get regenerated from dead ones. Stop making up excuses. They made fans watch the death of James Bond in the last movie. That happened. And as far as I'm concerned, from this point on, James Bond is dead. I vowed at that time not to go watch any more James Bond movies in that damn series. You kill him off, okay, fine. That's your right, I suppose, legally if not morally. But don't then expect to sell me any more adventures starring a dead body. Frack that bullshit. It's the Pottery Barn rule of franchises. You broke it. It's broke, assholes. Yeah, I was mad as hell. But as it turns out, my friends, the death of James Bond was a mercy killing. It was the last of the Broccoli James Bond movies, the last film in the series, not just for me in my headcanon, but in literal fact. Consider this. Broccoli killed James Bond and then screwed over Amazon by selling them a corpse. Oh, that is the bottom line, folks. After plenty of time to die, as it turns out, James Bond was not only damaged goods, he was dead. And now what does Amazon have? An empty shell of a dead franchise.
But they're gonna make more woke James Bond, Jane Bond, Bond of color, licensed to use pronouns. They'll spin off James Bond Jr., The Adventures of Ace, the Bond Wonder Dog. Moneypenny will get her own series where it was her saving James Bond all along. You know the routine.
So what? Amazon is going to absolutely pervert, distort, and destroy the franchise, but it's already dead. So who gives a shit? Hollywood itself realizes that this Amazon purchase is pretty much doomed because even though Amazon has high aspirations as a Hollywood theatrical studio releasing blockbusters in theaters, they're just a streamer who even bungled Lord of the Rings. They couldn't even get that right. And whatever they put out will not be James Bond unless, by some miracle, it is James Bond. In other words, all the woke bullshit updating Bond for modern audiences means it won't be James Bond at all. And it'll just be another expensive failure, and we can ignore it because James Bond is dead. Broccoli killed him before selling the dead body to Amazon for over $1 billion smackaroos. As Deadline puts it, quote, "The hard work now begins immediately in choosing the right executive to steer Bond in Kevin Feige fashion at Amazon MGM Studios. Meanwhile, cynicism abounds around town. One senior British film executive lamented, without Barbara's careful supervision, Bond just becomes Jack Reacher in some TV show." unquote. One thing about Amazon versus the traditional motion picture studios, it will spend and market to the high heavens to make a movie, for as a streamer, they don't have any stakes. The danger per one well-placed studio player. Watch this space, it's going to end up like the Gorge, unquote. My friends, lament not. James Bond is a very specific thing. He's a white male in a tux with a license to kill, surrounded by beautiful heterosexual women who he screws, who likes his martini shaken, not stirred. And any project that deviates from that formula in the slightest is a cheap knockoff, a parody, and is not James Bond. James Bond already died in the series that we loved, and that was for the best. Moving forward, unless by some miracle they make an actual James Bond movie starring a white male in a tux with a license to kill and screw women, we can safely ignore and should ignore everything and anything Amazon does with it. It's definitely not canon. It's something we can disregard. Don't lose a minute's sleep over it. And James Bond will return once the franchise hits the public domain, and talented artists can make great James Bond movies again at home using AI, their own imaginations, and love. As England Dan and John Ford Coley famously said, especially when it comes to keeping treasured aspects of our culture alive, love is the answer. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha.